I think we're going to wait just a little bit of time for some more people to trickle in. We'll start at maybe a couple minutes after, 5 minutes after. Um, I have to admit that all was well when I did kind of a quick run through without having to switch screens and stuff in Discord. And Discord's a little clunky. Hopefully, I don't go too far over. I'll try and keep the talk sub 30 minutes. Uh, no exact promises. Those of you new to Discord or those that haven't been to one of these show and tells, if you look in your upper right corner of your screen, there is a little, I guess it's like a speaking bubble or something like that, that will allow you to expand out the chat, which isn't shown by default. And so that way you can send messages, ask questions, things like that. Give it a little bit more time before we get started, just for a couple more to filter in. But just also wanted to say that this will be recorded. Um, and so if you need to drop early or just have other obligations, feel free. We should have it, I hope, up on our YouTube channel within the next week or so at the outside. All right, I guess we will get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the person you typically interact with first when you come into our Discord server, and I'm a developer relations engineer at Apostrophe. In our first show and tell, Tom, our CTO, presented an impromptu talk after we had some technical difficulties about what was then an unpublished module designed to streamline the integration of Apostrophe with Astro. This collaborative module has now been published, and today I want to share my experiences working with it. I want to make sure to acknowledge upfront the contributions to this module. The initial design and development were significantly driven by our enterprise partner, Michelin. The final touches and completion were mostly handled by Tom in house. Just to make sure everyone is up to speed, Astro is an open source web framework that focuses on aiding the developer to build fast, content driven websites. It uses a front end architecture called islands that allows for the delivery of pages stripped of all but the essential JavaScript. The general idea of an island's architecture is relatively simple. Render HTML pages on the server and inject placeholders or slots around highly dynamic regions that can then be hydrated on the client into small, self contained widgets. So, partial or selective hydration. Astro takes this a step further by providing the framework to use a wide variety of libraries like Vue, React, and Svelte to populate the islands. In fact, while playing around, I was able to have a page that had a component made in each of these libraries displayed at the same time, and it was ridiculously easy. This new integration module effectively turns Apostrophe and Astro into what you could call BFFs, but not best friends forever. In this case, the acronym stands for backend for front end. Essentially, it turns Apostrophe into a specialized backend for Astro. This allows for a seamless integration of Apostrophe as a headless CMS without having to worry about setting up API validation or doing other wiring to get your content displayed. The integration module takes care of all of that. But the even more exciting part of this integration is that it also delivers the entire Apostrophe admin UI to your Astro front end virtually automatically. So the modals for page or piece creation and editing look just like they would in any Apostrophe project. Additionally, this module allows for in-context editing, so you can add a rich text widget to an area and edit it directly on the page. I'm not going to go into every feature of this module in this talk. I'm just going to cover how to spin a project up and accomplish some basic tasks that you would normally do in an Apostrophe project. Remember that we're mostly just using Astro as a front end, so the vast majority of module configuration functions are going to be normal. Configuration functions like methods, handlers, and routes are all going to be the same. The one significant difference from a normal Apostrophe project is with widget players, which is basically hydrating a section of code on the front end, which is where Astro gives a ton of flexibility and choices. I'll give this topic a lot more attention in the last half of the talk. I'm fairly new to Astro and I've only been playing with the integration for a few weeks, so there might be some things that I do in this that aren't great practice, and please feel free to comment on them. Let's start by seeing how we can spin up a project. Along with the integration module, we have also released two starter kits. One of these starter kits, shown here, is for the Apostrophe backend. The other is for the Astro front end. Let's take a look at the Apostrophe backend starter kit first. In my experience, the starter kit for the Apostrophe side of the project does make things a little quicker and easier and has some great bells and whistles, but really any project can be used as the Apostrophe backend. You can get this starter kit using the CLI tool or by cloning and installing from GitHub like any of our starter kits. In order to get the starter kit using the CLI tool, you just use the normal apos create and pass in a project name, plus the starter flag, so dash dash starter equals Astro. Then you just follow the normal installation procedure, which will ask you for an admin first user and do the whole npm install. Once your project is all set up, you can bring it up by passing the environment variable apos external front key with a string value. Over on the Astro side, you need to go to the Apostrophe CMS repositories and clone the starter kit locally. Then you need to install the dependencies. I'm also installing some optional dependencies. And start the project again, passing the apos external front key and the same string value. Next, you want to log into localhost 4321. I already have these set up locally on my machine to save time, so I'm just going to switch over to my browser. As you can see, it looks like a fairly normal Apostrophe project minus some styling. Let's start next by quickly looking under the hood of an Astro project. Unlike the Apostrophe starter kit, the Astro starter kit is very valuable to get a new project up and running, and I highly recommend using it as a starting point. It has a few folders and files already in place to make development a little easier. It also already has the Apostrophe integration module as a dependency. So remember, this new module is installed on the Astro project side, not the Apostrophe project side. We will touch on the templates and widgets folder when we make a page and a widget in our new project. Focusing on the pages folder, you will find a single ... slug.astro file. This file represents a dynamic route that allows the handling of multiple URLs with a single file. In terms of Apostrophe, it will add all the comment from your pages into slots. The starter kit populates two of these slots, the standard head and main slots. These should sound very familiar as they're the same names as blocks found in an Apostrophe views/layout.html file. If we were to look into the Astro integration module, you would find a number of different layout files. They help to power the editing experience, but the important point is the available slots and the order are the same as those in an Apostrophe project. You're going to want to alter the ... slug.astro file to add headers and footers or other common page components into these slots, just like you would alter the layout.html file to include fragments in an Apostrophe project. Lastly, in this file, I want to point out the apos template from the integration module is getting the Apostrophe data object and being added to the main slot. This is going to output the template for the selected page. Let's go ahead and start with a basic Apostrophe task, creating a new page type. We will make a simple About Us page. Over in the Apostrophe project, we'll make a new page. I've actually already created this, and I'm just going to move it into the module folder. We'll add this page to the app.js and the add apostrophe cms/pages module, just like normal. Inside our new page module, we'll just add fields for a name, address, and a rich text widget. That's it for the server side. But again, if we were building a more complicated page with functionality like querying an API, we could do that just as normal. Over on the Astro side, we need to open up the templates folder and alter the index.js file. In the index.js file, we need to import the Astro template we will make and then add that template to the template components object. In this case, we just use the name of the module, About Us page. Finally, we have to add our markup in a new template file. I found it's easiest to duplicate and rename the default page. That way the imports in the front matter are already there. I've already created this template, so I'll just drag it into the folder. Opening it, you can see it's very simple. We're getting the area rendering code from the integration and all the data we need for the page. We're adding the title, name, and address content. The widget content is being passed into the Apos area component from the integration by passing the area schema field name main. You can have multiple Apos area components per page, and you can see an example of this in the 2-column widget. And there you go, we have a new page type. In the interest of time, I'm not going to cover adding a piece type in depth. Basically, for the actual piece type, there isn't anything to do on the Astro side. When you create a new piece type in your Apostrophe project, it will become available to add and edit in the Astro front end. For the piece type pages, on the Apostrophe side, you would need to follow the normal steps of adding the module to the app.js and pages module. On the Astro side, you would have to create templates for the index and show pages, and then map them in the index.js file using the colon notation that I pointed out earlier. Moving on to widgets. For creation of a static widget without client-side interactivity, it's like creating a widget in an Apostrophe project with the extra steps of creating a template and mapping that widget in the Astro project. For widgets, the template goes in the widget folder, and you wire it through the index.js file in that same folder. Much like with pages, you import the template and then add it to the widget components object using the name of the widget without the dash widget added. If that widget needs interactivity, you have a few choices. You can take the route that Tom did with the video widget and convert the widget to a web component. If you need that interactivity from the moment you add the widget to the page, I think this is your only choice. A second choice is to include the client JavaScript in a script tag in your component. Astro is smart enough to only include that code once on the page. The issue here that I think needs to be looked at is when are the widget components actually bundled for delivery? In testing, the widget script initializes as soon as the home page loads, even though this widget never is loaded on the home page. You will have full interactivity only after a page refresh. However, the template section of your widget will display during editing. In some cases, this is sufficient. The only advantage here is that it is almost plug and play with an existing widget player. You just have to be aware that the script is global, not per instance of the widget, and adjust accordingly. The third choice is to make use of a component from a library like Vue to provide the interactivity. This has the slight drawback that when the widget is first added to a page, when you're not editing in context, it will not be interactive. When you are editing in context, however, the widget will be hydrated. Since Tom provided us with an example of a web component, let's look at the other two choices, starting with the script added to the component. Switching to the Apostrophe project, I'm just going to drag my widget folder into the modules and register the widget in app.js. Then I will add the widget into the default page. Let's take a look at the widget itself. Just a simple schema field, but it registers a customized API routes function that takes user feedback, calculates an average rating, and saves it to the database. It also sends data to the front end to display the rating. Over on the Astro side, I'll also drag the component from my show and tell folder into the widget folder and wire it up in the index.js file. Now, if we make a new default page in our project, we can add our rating to the page. So now we have our rating widget on the page, but it isn't interactive. We have to save and view the page to get that refresh and make it interactive. We can use in-context editing to add a second widget, but again, it won't be interactive until we refresh the page. Let's look at the code creating this. In the front matter, I'm loading the widget ID from the Astro props and loading in a component that I'm going to use to display static stars on the left. Next, I have my template. The editor entered stars are the first block, and the user entered rating is the second block. Finally, I have my script. It isn't very optimized. I first converted it for handling multiple instances of the widget using the query selector all, but then I dropped back and partially for testing purposes, I used component encapsulation, but I can see now that I didn't fully convert it. Anyway, this is standard JavaScript hooking up event listeners. The only interesting point I want to show is the communication with the Apostrophe server. Remember, I registered a custom API route in the widget module. All I have to do now is post to that route to communicate back to the server and trigger storage and calculation of the average. Let's switch now to the third option for creating a widget player, creating the widget using a Vue component. Like with the inline script widget, I'll have to get it quickly wired up by dragging the template to the widget folder and adding it to the index.js file. Remember that when I created this project, I used the optional npx astro install Vue. This modified my config file appropriately and will allow me to use a Vue component. Here we can see that the functionality when we first add the widget without saving the page is limited. However, once we're editing in context, we're fine. We can both interact with the existing widget and add a new one, and it's interactive out of the box. Looking back at the code, we need to first look at the components folder. I'll come back to this little gotcha that is understandable once it's pointed out, but I wasted a bunch of time because of it. Anyway, in this case, I didn't factor the editor's input out to another component, and instead it's included in the main template. Within the style, I'm bringing in Font Awesome for the stars. I forgot to mention for the Astro component that I had installed Font Awesome from npm and then imported it in my static component. This script is just a standard Vue component, and again, I can easily hit that custom endpoint from within my component to communicate with the Apostrophe database and project. The last thing to look at is the actual template in the widgets folder for displaying the Vue component. Here's the gotcha. I originally added my Vue component at this level and directly wired it up. It displayed fine, but no interactivity. That is because Astro was stripping the JavaScript portion and my component was never hydrating. Instead, you need to import it as a component to a normal Astro file, and then you can add a client directive to the component to tell Astro to include the JavaScript. And that's it. I hope you can see that working with Apostrophe in Astro is really easy. And if you dislike nunchucks or just like another library more, this is a very viable solution.
So, Bob, I just wanted to quickly, first of all, thank you for persevering through all of that. And second, say maybe you already did this because I was a few minutes late joining. But if you have a link to a repo where folks can look at some of the code they may have had challenges seeing, then maybe we could paste that out as well. So thank you for talking about so many neat approaches. It's interesting that you kind of talked I think I counted 3 ways to do your front end JavaScript, right? You can do a web component, you can just do like whatever vanilla JavaScript you want to do in a script tag, and you can also, of course, you can use this really neat client directive feature, which I didn't even know about because the current documentation for Astro kind of emphasizes web components and simple front end JavaScript. But it was kind of mind blowing that we were learning, just this week how capable it is indeed at pushing JavaScript, framework driven JavaScript to browser land. I'm wondering if anyone else in the audience has been experimenting with Astro and if they have any preferences in this regard.
I think we lost him. Oh, wait. Alec requested to speak. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So yes, I'm Stefan from Michelin. So definitely we are on our end. We are heavily using this Astro integration now, and we are on our end. We have chosen to use Svelte as a front-end framework inside Astro. And we do just like what you said, Bob. We are wrapping our widget when we need hydrations. We are wrapping our Svelte component inside a small Astro widget, and it works like a charm. And what is very powerful with this client directive is that you can use a lot of different way of hydrating. What you demonstrate, Bob, is what a client load, which means that JavaScript is loaded at when the page loads, it's immediate. But you have a lot of choices for that. You can say, for example, I want to load the JavaScript only when the widget will be visible on the page when you scroll down, and this works very well. And it's awesome how fast it is when you come to the widget itself. When in the viewport, the JavaScript is instantly loaded, so it's amazing. And you can also do more tricky things like using media queries in order to say, I want my JavaScript to be hydrated only when I'm on a mobile, for example. It works also very well.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I must admit that I only got to that solution through direction, I guess, from you talking to Tom. But yeah, it was once it was explained, once you showed the example, it was immediately clear. Yeah, that's what you would have to do. It's kind of intuitive.
Since we have Stefan in the mix, if you guys can hear me okay, or if you can't hear me, let me know. But I just wanted to take a minute to ask Stefan, like, obviously you drove a lot of the early concepting for this specific strategy for integrating Astro in this way, create the proof of concept, really push this along. We were thrilled to help, finish it, publish it, create these starter kits and documentation around it. But from your perspective, like, what are you trying to solve for? Like, are there specific? Can you tell us what you're getting out of this approach that you didn't before? Are there like performance metrics or developer efficiency goals, things like that? What are you really getting from this on your side?
Yes, definitely. The main goals we had by looking at this kind of implementation with an external front was really about first performance for sure. And Astro for that gives us a lot of interesting ways to have to reach this performance. Second, it was developer experience for sure also, because when you are coding in that stack like Astro or Svelte and so on, with all the modern tooling we have around that, it's blazing fast. Much more than Apostrophe. Apostrophe is great for what it is made to do, but definitely it's not as fast. When you are like in a hot module reload stuff, it's a bit slow sometimes. It depends on your code that you have in Apostrophe. Where on Astro side, it's very, very fast. And it enables us also easily to embed whatever framework you want in the front end. So on Apostrophe, it was not always easy. We had some try on that in order to make our front inside Nunjuk with React or Svelte or Vue. It was not always easy, and mainly on the server-side rendering part. Here, we definitely have the complete. We manage completely the front end with Astro.
Stefan, you spoke there about hot module reloading, right? So this is one of the main wins, I think, especially speed from a developer perspective, right? I mean, in Apostrophe, you could, optimize as much as possible, like server-side Nunjucks templates, and then write little widget players. But from a developer standpoint, waiting for those things to rebuild is vastly accelerated if you just go the Astro route.
It has changed. It changed really the life of our developers, if I can say that.
For sure, for sure.
And
cool. Thanks for the perspective, Stefan.
Yes, and maybe one last thing, it enables us also to move. In fact, because when we were doing full Apostrophe development, definitely you need to embed all your business logic inside Apostrophe. Apostrophe is great to manage content, PCs, pages, widgets. It's awesome. When it comes to develop some complex business logic, sometimes it can be also complex. So with the approach we have with Astro, definitely we have moved everything that is related to, I would say, business logic more inside Astro, where again, as the development experience is better, it's a more modern framework. We can use stores with Svelte and so on. It really brings a lot of easiness, I would say, in development.
Awesome. Thanks again, Stefan. I want to hop off the stage.
I'm not sure if anybody else has any other comments or questions. I did want to, before people drop off, remind everybody that we are going to try once again to get Nick Bester of Hello Computer on in the next show and tell that will be mid-February. He's going to talk about his experiences with using Apostrophe CMS to power websites in his agency. Does anybody else have any comments, questions? You don't have to restrict yourself just to the Astro integration that we were talking about today. If you have some other comments on things you'd like to see improved in Apostrophe, go ahead and shout out. If not, ever so slowly, I guess we will shut this haunted event down. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. All right. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with it. Bye-bye.